The movie starts with the protagonist Annie, a beautiful high school student preparing her morning smoothie and going for her workout. She also enjoys playing volleyball. On her birthday, Will, her father, gifts her a laptop, and they celebrate with Lynn, her mother, and her brother, Peter. That night, she refuses to go to bed early and she keeps chatting with a boy. She informs Will that the boy is Charlie from California, a fellow high school student who also plays volleyball. Will is fine with her making high school friends, so he isn't bothered. The following day, Annie returns to school and she trains for her tryout. After training, she observes other students engaging in physical contact, but she feels uneasy about that lifestyle. One of the popular girls in the school, Serena, comes to meet her, asking her if her brother is Peter, their hottest grad student. She invites Annie to her party that weekend on the condition that Annie brings Peter along. Annie eventually does her volleyball tryout and she makes the team. She runs home to give this good news to her mother, and she also tells Charlie. She sends her picture to Charlie and asks for his, but he requests to confess something. He confesses to her that he is a sophomore student at college and he is 20 years old. According to him, he only pretends to be her age, so she wouldn't feel bad when he advises her about volleyball. She accepts his apology and he sends her his picture. Annie later goes to Serena's party with her friend, Brittany. She couldn't go with Peter because he was preparing for college. At the party, she feels uneasy as the students are rowdier than her, discussing mature topics. She feels uncomfortable and leaves. At home, she tries to explain this feeling to Will, but he doesn't understand her. She returns to her room where she tells Charlie all she went through, and he perfectly understands. She compliments him that he is the only one who understands her. The following day, she goes shopping with Brittany and Serena. When Lynn arrives, Annie reveals her new attractive bra, recommended by Serena, who suggests it as an improvement over the sports bra that flattens her chest. Lynn doesn't like that mentality and advises against it. That night, Annie chats with Charlie, who again reveals that he is not a sophomore student at college, but he is a graduate student, and he is 25 years old. She gets furious at him, wondering why he keeps lying to her, but he calls and apologizes. He throws her off her feet by giving her the reason he had lied and claims it is for her good, so she forgives him. Eventually, Peter prepares for college, and his parents decide to drive him to school. After her parents leave home, she tells Charlie about this, and he suggests they meet that day. He asks her to meet him at a supermarket, and she dresses to meet him there. Upon arrival, she calls him on the phone and asks for his location. Moments later, to her shock, she sees an older man beside her. He claims to be Charlie, but she doubts it, questioning why he lies when he looks older than 25 and should be around 35. He convinces her that he doesn't know how to tell her. He claims they share a relationship between soulmates, and she doesn't have to consider their age differences. In tears, she accepts that he loves her, and they walk out of the supermarket together. However, Brittany is working part-time at a store at the supermarket. She sees Annie walking with an older man, and she wonders who he is. Annie and Charlie go to a cafe where they eat before he takes her to his car. He prepares a gift for her, which turns out to be lingerie. He advises her to wear it at his motel. Upon wearing it, she feels uncomfortable. She attempts to go back to the bathroom, but he compliments her for looking great in lingerie. He asks her to sit beside him as he starts touching her. Although she feels uncomfortable getting intimate with him, she eventually gives in and they begin making out. Unbeknownst to her, Charlie films the entire process. After that incident, Annie returns home, but she is absent-minded. She tries to speak with Charlie, but he doesn't pick up or reply to her messages. At school, Brittany notices she is behaving unusually, and she confronts her about the older man. She finds out that Annie was sexually exploited, so she tells the school authority, who in return takes Annie for an examination. They call her parents and meet with the school counselor, Gail, also an FBI agent, Doug. To continue the investigation, they ask Annie to call Charlie so they can track him down. He falls victim and calls her, but asks her if she is alone. She claims she is alone, but he intentionally calls her mother's number. When the phone rings, he realizes he has been set up, so he ends the call and blocks her. Annie, who still believes she is in love, gets angry with her parents for making her lose her boyfriend. She still believes Charlie loves her, but Will tells Doug that he will kill Charlie if he finds him. Eventually, Annie attends a therapy session with Gail. She tells Gail about her love for Charlie, and Charlie feels the same too. She claims most of her classmates have had intercourse with half of the members of the football team, and it is normal for her to also have a boyfriend. She believes Charlie's advice made her enter the volleyball team, but Gail keeps convincing her that it is a crime to sexually exploit a minor like her. Will feels more concerned about the issue. He gets absent-minded and even travels to find more evidence. He receives a call from Doug, who informs him that Charlie paid for the hotel room with cash. He also bought the burner phone with cash, and he uses a VPN to chat. They realize that Charlie is a professional. At home, Lynn tries to talk to Annie about Brittany, but Annie remains angry that Brittany broke her relationship. When Will returns home, he tells Lynn all he has heard and also generates a list of sexual offenders in the country, hoping to identify any of them as Charlie. He asks Annie to check the list, but she refuses, claiming her boyfriend isn't a criminal. Regardless, Will starts stalking the criminals so he can find Charlie. Doug gets a suspect. When pursuing the suspect, he discovers that, despite talking like Charlie, he is not the culprit. When he informs Will, Will questions how they recognize Charlie's conversational style. He discovers that Doug has gotten a transcript of Charlie's conversation with Annie. He steals the transcript, and when he sees the adult words that his daughter uses, he gets irritated. Doug, on the other hand, calls him to return the transcript, telling him it is a crime. Later, Gail meets with Annie again. She asks how she feels about the intercourse, and when Annie says she feels boxed and can't move, Gail tells her it is a psychological issue that allows a person to blank out when she is being assaulted. Annie is not convinced by this and walks out of the meeting. Sometime later, Will creates a Catfish account as a young girl, hoping to catch Charlie, but his wife advises him against it, so he decides to check Annie's phone. He tries to talk to her, asking if Charlie has contacted her again, but she says no. She reluctantly hands him the phone, prompting him to check. Doubting her approval, she tosses the phone to him. She resumes school but gets furious at Brittany, asking her not to talk to her again. Will gets frustrated and meets with Gail for Annie's therapy information. However, Gail refuses. She counsels him that he doesn't have to feel bad, as it is difficult to convince someone who is spellbound by love. Furious, he decides to buy a gun and kill Charlie. He buys it and shoots one of the sexual offenders he has been tailing. Turns out that he is just imagining. Will is still bothered by this incident, and he goes to drink alcohol. The following day, Will goes to pick Peter up, as he is returning home. During their Halloween gathering, Annie keeps behaving unusually, and she confronts her parents about not keeping her secret. Eventually, Doug comes to announce that they have found Charlie's DNA, and it matches with an offender who had done the same with 3 other girls. Annie defends him that he had other girlfriends, but Doug shows her that the kids are all minors, even a 12-year-old girl. In disbelief, Annie realizes she is never special, so she runs to Gail's house and confides in her. Gail consoles her that it isn't her fault. Her parents come to pick her up later, and at home, Will keeps browsing about sexual offenders. Lynn gets angry at him, telling him they are meant to save their daughter first. As a result, he gives up on finding Charlie. Annie's life turns to normal, and she plays volleyball. During the game, Will finds a man taking videos of the girls. The man looks like one of the offenders, so he goes to attack the man but finds out he is mistaken. Annie gets humiliated and walks away. At home, Will tries to apologize to her, but she doesn't care about his apology because she feels her life is ruined. The following day at school, Brittany informs Annie about something on the internet. Annie goes to check on it and sees her video, and her face has been scattered online. Depressed, Annie sneaks back home and enters the bathroom to drug herself to death. Will suddenly receives a call from Lynn telling him to check on Annie, but he doesn't know that Annie has returned home. Panicked, he immediately searches the house, breaks the bathroom door, and finds his daughter unconscious in there. That is also when Lynn arrives and they call the ambulance. In the next scene, Annie wakes up at home and she sees her father outside the house. Turns out that Will doesn't sleep throughout the night. He talks about how brave Annie was when she was little, and he is proud to have a daughter like her. He apologizes for not being able to protect her, and they eventually reconcile. In the closing scene, Charlie is seen on a street with his wife and son, where he reveals he is a physics teacher. Subscribe to watch more videos like this, leave a like to help the channel out, also leave a comment if you'd like us to recap your favorite movie. Thanks for watching.